explosively. 3 people told me off record. 2 people who have this in a written communication from Charlie. One who is a Turning Point USA donor, and I would say very much one of the white knights in this. The very day before Charlie Kirk died.
Hold up, because what started as a simple statement just turned into a full-blown internet firestorm. Erika Kirk is out here saying, "I have his phone." Like that single line should shut down every rumor, every theory, every late-night thread that's been spiraling online. But instead of ending the conversation, it did the exact opposite. Now people are asking one question louder than ever. If the phone is in her hands, why do so many voices still swear there were final texts floating around behind the scenes? And listen, none of this is confirmed. We're not saying any of it is fact. We're talking about what's being claimed, what's being hinted at, and why the story feels messier every time someone tries to clean it up. Because the moment Erika said she checked and found nothing, the internet didn't calm down. It got sharper. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and suddenly everyone has a source, a screenshot, or a friend of a friend who knows what really happened. So tonight, we're breaking down the claims, the contradictions, and the reason this whole final message narrative just exploded all over again. The moment Erika Kirk sat down for that interview, you could feel the air change. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't playing nice, and she wasn't there to soothe anyone's curiosity. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands were tight, like she was holding herself together with her own grip. "I'm going to say this one time," she told the host, her words slow and deliberate. "I have his phone." And just like that, the comment sections lit up like someone threw a match into dry grass. Because for weeks, people online had been repeating the same claim in different outfits. Some said there were final messages.
That he thought he was going to be killed. He told these people, "I think they're going to kill me." Okay? He did not express that to me. I'm telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I'm saying this because I hope that these people, who I think are good, will be inspired to come forward with that. Again, those conversations I had were off record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping
people are talking about, they aren't there. Erika didn't flinch. I'm saying I went through what I could, and I did not see a message that matches what people are repeating. And that wording, "what I could," became its own little earthquake. Because the internet doesn't hear what you say, it hears what it can twist. Fans are shocked, and you could see it in real time. One side started shouting, "See, she confirmed it, it's fake." The other side went quiet for a second, then came back louder, like they'd been waiting for this exact opening. "What do you mean what you could?" one commenter typed, and then 1,000 people repeated it like a chant. Within an hour, a drama channel went live and zoomed in on the clip like it was a confession. The host on that live stream leaned toward the camera, eyes wide, voice low like a conspiracy whisper. "Listen, I'm not saying Erika is lying. I'm saying something isn't adding up, and people are noticing." That's how it always starts. Nobody wants to say the heavy words. They dress it up in questions and concerns, and I'm just pointing out what's being said. But the effect is the same. The family gets pulled into a storm, and the storm doesn't care who is grieving. And then Candace Owens stepped into it. Candace had already been hinting around the edges for days. She kept using careful language, the kind that sounds responsible but still pushes the audience to lean forward. "People are coming to me," she said in one clip. "People I trust. And I'm telling you, there are claims being made behind the scenes that don't match what's being said publicly." She didn't name names at first. She didn't have to. The audience filled in the blanks, because that's what an audience does when you hand them a puzzle and tell them it's urgent. Candace called it the White Knight story, like some mysterious insider was protecting someone, shielding something, holding a message that could change the narrative. Allegedly, Candace said, pausing long enough for the word to land, someone received a text from Carl the night before everything went wrong.
That watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10, that, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he died think that he was going to be killed, and maybe tell us, who is they? Well, for once and for all, who is they? Who is the they that he thought were going to kill him?
And vacuums pull in rumors like air. The first time the final text's claim appeared, it was vague. Someone close to him said he was worried. Then it became specific. He messaged people. Then it became dramatic. He said he thought someone was coming for him. By the time Erika said, "I have his phone," it wasn't one rumor anymore. It was a whole web. And when she denied the web, people didn't go away. They started tugging harder, trying to see what would unravel. A former staffer named Blake went on a podcast and told his version. Blake said Carl had been exhausted, stressed, and angry, but still energized like he was about to push out a big project. He kept saying things were getting interesting again, Blake claimed, like he had something on his mind. Then another former staffer, Drew, jumped in on social media and corrected him. "That's not what he meant," Drew posted. "Stop twisting it." Fans watched the back and forth like it was a televised reunion episode. Emotions ran high. People picked teams. The comments weren't just opinions anymore. They were accusations. "Blake is covering," one person wrote. "Drew is hiding," someone replied. And just like that, two random voices became villains and heroes depending on which side you were standing on. But the mess really escalated when Frank Turin spoke up. Frank wasn't a gossip guy. He was a family friend, someone who'd been around long before the cameras multiplied. When Frank said he had concerns, people listened, because he didn't sound like he was chasing clicks. He sounded shaken, and the way he spoke made the rumor feel heavier. "I'm not trying to inflame anything," Frank said in a recorded statement. "I'm telling you what was shared with me. Carl was under pressure. He asked for prayers. He said he felt targeted." The internet grabbed the phrase "felt targeted" and chewed it into 100 different shapes. But Frank didn't stop there. He implied there were messages, and he implied they were serious. He didn't show screenshots. He didn't drop receipts. He just spoke like a man carrying a memory he didn't want. That's when Erika's circle started snapping back. A close friend of Erika's, Mel, posted a long message that read like a protective wall. "You all need to stop," Mel wrote. "You don't know what you're doing to this family. You are turning grief into a game." And for a moment, the comments softened. People said they were sorry. People said they were praying. People said they would back off. But then someone posted a blurred image. It hit social media late at night.
Some degree, and had made the conscious choice that I may be taken out early, not saying he knew that day, but that he had any inkling that this might come his way and that he intentionally chose to move forward with faith in God.
It's interesting because
Kendra didn't repost it. She didn't confirm it. She did something more dangerous. She reacted. "I've seen a lot," she said in a short clip, looking directly at the lens. "And I'm going to tell you this. I believe people are not being honest about what exists and what doesn't, allegedly." Erika saw that clip, and you could practically hear the doors slamming behind the scenes. Because if Erika's whole point was to shut down the noise, Kendra just turned the volume up again, and she did it with a kind of careful language that makes it hard to argue with without looking defensive. The next morning, Erika's team scheduled another sit-down. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fun. It looked like damage control, and everyone could tell. Erika came back on camera with the same composure, but her eyes looked tired in a way that didn't feel performative. She took a breath and said, "I understand people want answers. We want answers too. We've sent every lead to the proper authorities. We are not hiding anything, but I need you to understand something." The host nodded like they were ready for a heartfelt moment. Erika's voice sharpened. "When you say, 'I have his phone,' people think it means you have every app, every login, every hidden folder, every private thread. That is not how real life works. So stop acting like you can build a case out of rumors and half screenshots." And that single sentence split the audience all over again. Because to some people, it sounded reasonable. To others, it sounded like a crack in the certainty. And while the internet argued, the people closest to the story started pulling away from each other in subtle, painful ways. Friends stopped liking posts. Former allies stopped speaking. Supporters started whispering instead of praising. The family was left divided, not because anyone proved anything, but because the claims were loud enough to make trust feel fragile. By that evening, the same question was everywhere, repeated with different tones, but the same core. If everyone is telling the truth, why does it keep feeling like the story changes depending on who is talking? If you want, I'll continue with part 2 in the same fictional setup, same rules, and make sure it flows directly from the last line. Depending on who is talking, why does it keep feeling like the story changes? That question didn't just sit in the comments. It followed people into their group chats, into late-night live streams, into the quiet spaces where grief is supposed to be private. And the strangest part was how fast the conversation stopped being about Carl Carr and started being about Erika Carr, like she was the main character in a drama she never auditioned for. By the time sunrise hit, there were already 3 new clips circulating, each one framed like a gotcha moment. One clip showed Candace Owens pausing mid-sentence, like she was choosing her words carefully. Another clip showed Frank Turin looking visibly uncomfortable, like he regretted saying anything at all. And the third clip was Erika, tight-lipped, repeating the same line with the patience of someone trying not to break. "I have his phone."
Fans were shocked, not because the line was new, but because the way people were reacting to it felt unhinged. Some people treated it like a verdict, like the conversation should end right there. Others treated it like a challenge, like the phone was now a prize that needed to be taken, examined, decoded, and used. That's when the rumors picked up a new ingredient, the idea of a missing thread. Not missing in the sense that it disappeared like magic, but missing in the sense that it might not be where people were looking. And again, nobody was proving anything. It was all I heard, someone told me, allegedly, and this is what's going around. But once that idea lands, it spreads like perfume. You don't see it, but suddenly it's everywhere. A creator named Ivy Lane went live and said, "I'm not accusing Erika of anything. I'm saying the internet is asking a fair question. What if the message wasn't a normal text?" Ivy leaned into her camera like she was telling a scary story at a sleepover. What if it was a voice note? What if it was a different app? What if it was a group chat with a weird name? You can have a phone and still not see everything unless you know exactly where to look. That live stream blew up, not because Ivy had proof, but because Ivy had a storyline, and on the internet, a storyline can feel more powerful than a fact. Within hours, people started pretending they were experts on phones, backups, privacy settings, hidden conversations, and everything else. You'd see comments like, "There are secret folders," and someone else would reply, "You can archive chats," and another person would scream, "You can delete messages," like that alone meant something had happened. Erika's friend Mel saw those comments and lost her patience. Mel posted again, and this time the tone wasn't gentle. It was a warning wrapped in frustration. "You do not get to turn a family into your entertainment," she wrote. "You do not get to invent scenarios and then act offended when people won't play along. You do not know what you're talking about." But the internet doesn't respond well to scolding. It responds with stubbornness. The comments doubled, the theories multiplied, and for the first time, someone started dragging in the wider circle around Carl's media network, the one he built from the ground up. People began pointing at donors, at advisors, at old friends, at former allies who had smiled next to Carl on stage. Suddenly, every old photo became suspicious. Every handshake looked staged. Every clip got rewatched like it contained a hidden signal. And in the middle of it all sat a rumor that wouldn't die, the White Knight. Kendra had used that phrase like a hook, and now everyone wanted to identify who it was. Because if a mysterious supporter had written proof, then the internet believed the proof had to be real. Nobody asked how convenient it was that the story always involved a person who wouldn't speak publicly. The names started flying around, all allegedly, all unverified. One day it was a wealthy supporter known for funding tours. The next day it was a longtime advisor who used to introduce Carl at events. Then someone threw in a random name from overseas, and people ran with it like it was confirmed. A small podcast called After Hours with Nico did an episode titled "The Phone Doesn't End the Questions," and Nico's voice had that dramatic calm that makes everything sound more serious. "Here's what's happening," Nico said. "Erika is saying I have his phone, and I believe her. But Kendra is saying people came to me privately, and I believe her too. So the audience is stuck in the middle, and when people feel stuck, they start picking sides." Nico wasn't wrong. The family was left divided in a way that felt subtle but sharp. Not divided like a shouting match in public, but divided like people quietly choosing distance. You could see it in the little things. Someone unfollowing someone, a friend deleting a supportive comment, a colleague refusing to share a tribute post. And then the first real behind-the-scenes tension leaked, not as a document, not as a screenshot, but as a whisper. A blog account posted, "Allegedly, Erika is furious with Kendra and thinks she's exploiting grief." Nobody could verify that, but it sounded believable enough to spread. Another account replied, "Allegedly, Kendra thinks Erika is shutting down questions to protect the brand." Again, unverified, but it was dramatic, and drama travels faster than caution. By the afternoon, people were saying there had been a private phone call between them. Some claimed Erika hanged up. Some claimed Kendra refused to apologize. Some claimed there was a mediator involved, like this was a reality show reunion with a producer taking.
None of it was confirmed, but it created a vibe. And once the vibe is set, everything else gets interpreted through it. That same evening, Erika's interview clip resurfaced again, but this time people were focusing on her wording. Not the big sentence, but the small one. "I went through what I could." Fans replayed it over and over, like it was a clue she didn't realize she dropped. And then the internet did what it always does. It built a whole narrative out of tone. "She sounded defensive," one person wrote. "She sounded exhausted," someone else replied. "She sounded like she was trying to end it," another commenter added. And that last one landed the hardest, because it was probably the only thing everyone agreed on. Erika wanted the noise to stop. And Kendra, whether intentionally or not, was keeping it alive by framing the story as a question of honesty and accountability. Then a new twist popped up, and it wasn't about a text at all. It was about timing. A creator found an old clip of Carl from weeks earlier where he talked about pressure, about feeling watched, about how public life makes every decision feel like it has consequences.
It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a confession. It was a general statement. But people started attaching it to the circulating claims like it was the missing puzzle piece. "Look at his face," the creator said. "That's not normal stress. That's fear." And just like that, people started treating normal human emotion like evidence. Frank Turin saw this spiral and tried to pull back. He posted a short note, simple and careful. "Please stop making assumptions. I spoke from my experience. I cannot verify what others are claiming. I want peace for the family." It was a mature statement, but in the world of internet drama, maturity gets ignored because it doesn't feed the fire. The fire stayed focused on one thing: Erina's authority claim versus everyone else's behind-the-scenes claim. And the more Erina tried to present stability, the more people treated it like a performance. They started saying she had been coached. They started saying the network's team had prepped her. They started saying it was brand protection. Mel snapped again, posting, "You are not entitled to private pain. You are not entitled to answers on your schedule." But the audience wasn't thinking about entitlement. They were thinking about mystery. Because when a public figure dies and there's confusion, people want a clean story. They want a clear villain or a clear explanation. And when they don't get that, they turn the gaps into a playground. By the end of the day, the main drama wasn't whether the message existed. It was the fact that everyone kept talking like they held the full truth, while also insisting they couldn't share details. And that contradiction made the whole situation feel messy, even to people who didn't want to pick a side. And in that mess, one thing became obvious to anyone paying attention. The internet wasn't just watching a story unfold. It was shaping the story as it went, forcing every person involved to respond to rumors they never created, and turning every attempt at closure into a fresh reason to dig again. And that digging didn't stay online for long. It started bleeding into real life in small, ugly ways, the kind that don't trend but still change everything. People began showing up outside the studio. Not crowds, not chaos, just enough strangers standing around with phones out to make everyone inside feel watched. Even the parking lot started feeling like a stage. Erina's team tried to pretend it was normal. They kept schedules tight, entrances private, cars moving. But you could tell the stress was piling up because the people around her stopped talking like publicists and started talking like exhausted friends. One assistant was overheard saying, "She can't even breathe without someone turning it into a clue." Meanwhile, Kendra didn't slow down. She posted less, but every time she did speak, she sounded more careful and more intense at the same time, like she knew she was walking a line and decided to dance on it anyway. In one short clip, she looked straight at the camera and said, "I'm not accusing anyone, I'm repeating what's being claimed, and I'm saying the public deserves consistency." That word, consistency, hit like a slap. Because if you're Erina, consistency sounds like a demand. It sounds like someone telling you that your grief has to be organized into a neat timeline for strangers, and Erina's patience was already thin. Late that night, another rumor started rolling, and it came from the worst possible place. A private meeting is happening. People said Kendra and Erina were going to sit down face to face, not on camera, not for content, but behind closed doors. Others claimed a mutual contact arranged it, someone respected by both sides, someone who could keep it calm. Nobody could prove it, but the idea spread anyway, and by morning, fans were already acting like it was confirmed. "If they meet, someone's going to snap," one commenter wrote. "No, if they meet, the truth will come out," another replied. Fans were shocked, but not because they cared about resolution. They were shocked because they smelled a showdown, and the internet loves a showdown more than it loves peace. Erina tried to get ahead of it without feeding it. She didn't name Kendra, but she posted a simple statement that sounded like it was written by someone who had already cried twice before breakfast. "I will not argue about my husband on the internet. I will not debate grief. I will not entertain theories. If anyone has credible information, send it to the proper channels, not to a comment section." It should have calmed things down. It did the opposite. Because when someone says credible information, it makes the audience believe there must be incredible information floating around too. And in that moment, the rumor machine found its next twist, a voice note. A small account posted a blurry audio waveform, claiming it was a clip from the so-called final message. It was only a few seconds long, and you couldn't even tell what it really was, but it didn't matter. The comments exploded instantly. "That sounds like him," one person argued. "It could be anyone," another person argued. "Why is it cut like that?" someone asked, and a new theory formed on the spot. Within minutes, bigger creators started reacting to it, not playing it, not confirming it, but talking about it like it was radioactive. "I'm not going to share unverified audio," one streamer said, eyes wide, "but the fact that this exists is going to make everything worse." And that was the problem. The rumor didn't need to be real to be damaging. It only needed to exist long enough for people to believe it might be real. Mel saw the audio posts and went full protective mode. She didn't write a paragraph this time. She wrote a threat that wasn't violent, just sharp. "Delete that, now." And people didn't delete it. They reposted it more, because the internet sees don't as an invitation. Erina's circles started turning on each other behind the scenes, not in a dramatic screaming match, but in that quiet, poisonous way where nobody trusts anyone anymore. Someone blamed a staffer for leaking, someone blamed an old friend for talking to a blogger, someone accused a former teammate of feeding Kendra information. She's turning this into a show, one person allegedly said about Kendra, according to a Whisper account that claimed to have a source close to Erina. Then another Whisper account fired back, claiming the opposite. Erina's team is pressuring everyone to stay quiet. Again, nobody could prove it, but it didn't matter, because once people believe there are camps, they start looking for traitors. And then, finally, the private meeting room returned into a sighting. A fan account posted they were both at the same hotel. Not I heard, not someone told me.
They wrote it like they saw it. They described a lobby, a pair of security guys, a woman in a dark coat who looked like Erina, and another woman stepping out of an elevator that looked like Kendra. The post ended with, "This is about to go down." Emotions ran high instantly. People started tracking locations like detectives. Creators went live with maps. Comment sections turned into prediction markets. But here's what made it messy. Nothing actually happened in public. No yelling, no photos, no confrontation clip, no caught on camera moment, just silence. And silence is gasoline when the audience is already on fire. People began saying it did happen, just privately. They claimed the conversation was heated. They claimed Erina demanded to know names. They claimed Kendra refused to name the White Knight. They claimed someone slammed a door. They claimed someone cried. They claimed someone threatened to sue. They claimed everything. Fans were shocked again because the story was turning into a full reality episode without a single verified scene. And then a new detail dropped that changed the tone completely. A third person was there. According to multiple gossip accounts, the meeting wasn't just Erina and Kendra. It was also someone connected to the media network, someone who used to be close to Carl, someone who had been quiet since everything happened. The accounts didn't agree on who it was, but they agreed on the role: mediator, translator, bridge, referee. The narrative shifted immediately, because now it wasn't just grief versus commentary. Now it was the machine versus the outsider. And people love a machine versus outsider storyline because it feels like a battle for power. A creator named June Rose did a breakdown and said, "This is what we're watching. Erina represents the official story, the organized story, the keep it together story. Kendra represents the messy questions that won't go away. And if there's a mediator, it means even they know this is getting out of control." June didn't claim it was true. She kept saying allegedly, but her tone made it feel true. She spoke like it was inevitable. And that same day, a new clip of Erina surfaced from an older event, long before the current drama. It was a casual moment, her laughing beside Carl, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes warm. The clip should have been sweet. Instead, people used it like a weapon. "She always managed the narrative," one person commented. "Look how protective she is," another said, like that was suspicious. And that's when the internet crossed a line it always crosses. It turned personality into evidence. It turned love into strategy. It turned normal behavior into a plot. Erina saw that, and she cracked a little. Not in a meltdown, but in a rare moment of rawness. She went live unexpectedly. No studio lights, no makeup perfection. Just her in a quiet room with tired eyes. "You're doing this because it's exciting," she said, voice shaking but controlled. "You're treating my life like it's a puzzle you get credit for solving. I am asking you to stop." It was the most human moment she'd had on camera since the started, and for a brief second, the comments softened. But then someone wrote, "If you want us to stop, tell us why the stories keep changing." And that one comment pulled the room back into tension because it said what the audience kept thinking. Erina closed her eyes, took a breath, and said, "Stories change because people repeat things they don't fully understand, because people turn private stress into public drama, because grief makes memory messy, because you are hearing claims, not facts." That line should have been the end of it. Instead, it became the new headline, chopped up and reposted until it sounded like a confession and a scolding at the same time. And by the time the live ended, the internet had already decided on the next twist. If Erina was admitting the story was messy, then the mess must be hiding something, and the hunt wasn't slowing down. It was just getting smarter about how it searched. Getting smarter about how it searched, that's what made this phase feel different. The wild guesses didn't stop, but they started wearing nicer clothes. Instead of screaming in comments, people started building timelines. Instead of "trust me bro" posts, they started using careful language.
the same kind Kendra loved. Allegedly, reportedly, sources say. And somehow that made it feel more dangerous because it sounded calm while it cut deep. The next wave wasn't about audio anymore. It was about a name. A mid-sized creator dropped a video titled like a warning and opened with, "I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying this is what multiple accounts are circulating." Then they claimed the White Knight wasn't a mysterious stranger at all, but someone who had been in the orbit for years, someone who had access, someone who knew where the bodies were buried, metaphorically, and someone who had everything to lose if the conversation kept growing. Fans were shocked because suddenly it wasn't just Erina versus Kendra. It was Erina versus the idea that the inner circle had secrets. And then, as if on cue, a blurry screenshot hit the timeline again. Not audio this time, not a waveform, a text bubble, 2 lines, a timestamp. The name at the top was smudged out. The sender could have been anyone. The message could have been anything. But the caption under it did what captions always do when they want to manipulate you. "This is the final thread. Do not let them bury it." Within minutes, people were acting like the smudged name was a challenge. They zoomed in. They adjusted contrast. They argued about fonts. They compared it to older screenshots that may or may not have been real. And the worst part was how quickly it turned into a sport. Mel saw it and went straight to war mode. She didn't even try to be polite. "You're sick," she posted. "You're fabricating grief. You're taking a family's worst season and turning it into content." Someone replied, "If it's fake, prove it." And that one sentence, even though it was just a comment from a stranger, landed like a punch because it forced the family into a trap. If they responded, they fed the beast. If they didn't respond, people took it as guilt. Erina didn't respond immediately. She disappeared for almost a full day, which only made the noise louder. Creators started saying, "She's silent because she's cornered." Others said, "She's silent because she's protecting her kids." Both sides spoke like they knew her personally. When Erina finally came back, she didn't do it alone. She appeared in a short recorded clip with 2 people beside her. Not famous, not influencers, just serious faces that screamed, "We are done playing." One of them was described by fan pages as a family attorney. The other was described as a close advisor from Carl's network. Nothing was confirmed, but their presence changed the tone instantly. Erina's voice was steady, but you could tell she was holding back heat. "There are claims circulating online," she said, staring into the camera, "and some of those claims are being repeated as if they are verified. They are not." She paused, and for a second, the room felt quiet even through a screen. "I have seen fabricated screenshots," she continued. "I have seen edited clips. I have seen people pretending they have access they do not have. And I will say this clearly. If you have credible information, send it through the proper channels. If you are creating fiction for clicks, stop." The lawyer-looking person leaned forward slightly and added, "We are documenting harmful falsehoods. We are requesting takedowns where appropriate. This is not entertainment for the family." Fans were shocked again, but this time it wasn't giddy shock. It was that nervous kind, the kind that happens when the party gets interrupted by an adult. Some viewers backed off immediately. You could see the shift.
The comments, "Leave her alone. This is too far. Let them grieve." But others doubled down, because when you threaten boundaries, the internet tests them. Kendra reacted that same night, and her response was careful like a blade. "I'm not sharing screenshots," she said in a calm clip, "and I'm not encouraging anyone to harass a widow. But I will not apologize for asking why there are conflicting accounts. If someone is telling the truth will stand." She didn't mention Erina by name. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who she was talking to, and the tension felt personal, even without direct words. Then came the most dramatic twist of all, not because it was loud, but because it was quiet and strangely human. A mutual friend, someone in the wider circle, posted a message asking both sides to stop. "I knew Carl," the friend wrote. "He was complicated, and he was loved. Erina is shattered. Kendra is relentless, and the rest of you are turning whispers into weapons. Please, breathe." That post went semi-viral because it sounded like the first piece of sanity in a room full of smoke, and for a moment, people actually listened. Even Kendra softened slightly in her next upload. She looked less triumphant and more tired. "I don't want to destroy a family," she said. "I want clarity, and I wish we didn't have to do this in public." Erina didn't respond publicly, but something shifted behind the scenes.
A few accounts that had been fueling the wildest theories started deleting posts. A couple of creators posted apologies. One influencer even admitted, "I got carried away." It wasn't a full cleanup, but it was a change in temperature. And then the private meeting rumor came back one last time, but in a different form. Not a hotel sighting, not a caught on camera. A simple claim that sounded like it came from someone who wanted the drama to end. "They spoke," a gossip account wrote. "It was tense. There were tears. And they agreed on one thing. The internet is making it worse." Again, unverified. Just a claim. But it fit the moment. It sounded like the kind of truth nobody celebrates, because it's not juicy. It's just sad. The way fans reacted told you everything. Half the audience cheered, like peace had been restored. The other half got angry, like peace was theft. "So we'll never know," one person commented. "You're not owed knowing," someone replied. The family was left divided, not only inside the circle, but in the public that had wrapped itself around the story. Some supporters rallied behind Erika, defending her boundaries like they were defending their own. Others stayed loyal to Candace's framing, insisting that questions aren't cruelty and that contradictions deserve attention. But what made the whole thing feel messiest wasn't the rumors. It was the way everyone was talking past each other. Erika kept saying, "Stop turning claims into facts." Candace kept saying, "Stop acting like questions are attacks." And the audience kept translating both into whatever story they already wanted to believe. By the end of that week, the chaos didn't look like a scandal anymore. It looked like two different kinds of pain colliding in public. One kind trying to close a door to survive. The other kind trying to keep the door open because it believes closure without clarity is a lie. And that's the real reason this final texts story got messy. Not because anyone proved anything, but because the claims kept multiplying while trust kept shrinking. Erika's line, "I have his phone," was meant to be the stop sign. Instead, it became the spark that showed how badly people want a single sentence to solve a complicated loss. So now the story sits where so many public tragedies end up sitting, in a pile of circulating claims, half-confirmed memories, edited clips, and emotionally loaded interpretations. And until the internet learns the difference between a rumor and a fact, every attempt at peace is going to look, to someone, like a cover-up, and every attempt at clarity is going to feel to someone else, like cruelty. So here's where we're at right now. And remember, we're only talking about what's being claimed and what's circulating online, not stating anything as confirmed. Erika Kirk keeps standing on that one line, "I have his phone," like it should end the conversation, while Candace Owens keeps pushing the idea that the public deserves consistency when stories don't match. And in the middle of all that, you've got fans pulling apart every clip, every pause, every sentence, trying to decide what's real and what's just noise. But the biggest question still hangs in the air. If this was all misunderstanding, why did it grow this fast? And why did so many people start acting like they had pieces of a puzzle nobody officially put on the table? Was it just grief colliding with internet obsession? Or is there a reason certain details keep turning into arguments instead of getting cleared up? And if you're being honest, you can probably feel it too. The more people try to shut it down, the more it seems to expand. The more someone says, "Stop asking," the more it makes people wonder what they're not supposed to notice. And that's exactly how a messy story becomes a full-blown public storm. Now, I want you to tell me this in the comments. Do you think Erika's statement should be enough to quiet everything? Or do you think the contradictions people keep pointing out are exactly why the questions won't go away? And if a private conversation really happened behind the scenes, do you think it would calm the situation? Or just add another layer of mystery? If you want updates as more claims pop up and more reactions drop, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. And don't just watch quietly, because your opinion matters here.